Hello everyone. It's been a while since we've been back here in this room here, but today I'm gonna do an Unscripted Memories episode, not about the Nintendo Switch, which I plan to do an impressions video that I actually recorded most of back at my home place, and I will edit it until I got some new games and some new stuff about the online service came out. So I decided to hold that back and see what E3 brings, but since E3 is around the corner, I'm going to make the next Unscripted Memories episode about E3. So, since I have quite a few memories of the past E3s and what I think about this upcoming one, I'm going to go over what I hope for this E3 and my fondest memories of the previous. Let's get started and share my unscripted memories of E3. So E3 has been around since May of 1995, which is approximately 22 years ago, and ever since then it's been, well, the mainstay for Nintendo and other companies to announce their biggest products and games and what else have you. It's usually the biggest show in the world, but now it's kind of deteriorated in favor of online events and other events like the Tokyo Game Show in Japan. But before E3, there was Space World, which Nintendo did for a while after E3, but I don't know when exactly they stopped. I just know they did have a Space World event and also some other personal events that they used for the Super Nintendo and Famicom. And the other companies, well, didn't really exist at the time. Sega was notorious for doing that whole Sega Saturn early launch thing for that one E3 they did, and Sony did the price of the PS1 that same E3 to compete. I think it was 1996, the second one, when both companies did their respective memorable E3s, because Sega failed because of the Saturn early launch and the PlayStation succeeded because of what they did to counter it. And for me, I didn't even know E3 existed. I didn't even have any idea that games would get announced in the summertime or on a massive scale until 2004, sometime in the summer, maybe June, July, or August, when I was still living with my birth mother and her sister, my other aunt, and my aunt was reading a magazine of sorts that had a picture of Mario 64 for the DS on the front cover, and I was like, whoa, what on earth is this DS thing? And she was like, oh, I don't know. And I read a bit of the pages, saw this weird two-screen contraption, and since it was expensive, it was going to be expensive, I never got one, and I never really asked for one because there wasn't many good games on it that interested me back when I was with my mom, and that was like until March of 2006. So I stuck to my Game Boy Advance, and I always had the classic little oval-shaped model. I never had an SP. I saw plenty of them. I even saw ads for the micro, but I never had an. I just had the basic model, which really was awful because of the stupid lack of backlight. I hope to get an SP someday. But that was my first exposure to E3, was seeing the bit of coverage about Mario 64 and the DS. I didn't pay attention to anything else in that article. I don't even know what magazine I looked at. It just had the 64 DS on the front cover. But the next time I heard about E3 was in 2009, when on the Nintendo channel I went on every week because I was starting to pick up on the Nintendo channel and get used to that, because it was a good channel. I didn't watch Nintendo Week, but I watched the trailers and downloaded demos. And in June of 2009, or it may have been May, I don't remember which, but in one of those 2 months, I saw some E3 trailers because they had E3 next to them. And I was like, oh, so this is where they announced new games. And I saw that some new games like Bowser's Inside Story and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explores the Sky, the localization, they were announced, and a few other titles were announced. But I still didn't know that was a big deal because at the time, I had just joined my first internet forum, Animal Crossing Community, which I mentioned about in the previous Eternal Memories episode. So E3 didn't really become something I looked forward to until the next year, where I had a whole year of experience on an internet forum. I kind of knew what stuff was going on in the gaming world, and so people were rumoring a new Nintendo system and a new Animal Crossing game, because the site I was on was an Animal Crossing fan site, so of course everyone hoped for Animal Crossing news. And there was rumors going around that there would be an Animal Crossing and Kid Icarus games for a new system called the Nintendo 3DS, and sure enough, they announced both games and the 3DS the next E3. It was June of 2010. And I remember seeing the first bits of footage for Animal Crossing 3DS and thought, oh my god, that game looks so cool. I can't wait to get 3DS and play it on the year it comes out. But then Animal Crossing for 3DS didn't come out until late 2012, for Japan and the middle of 2013 for the US. So I had to wait quite a while to play Animal Crossing New Leaf, as it was called, and it was not worth it. I still prefer the GameCube original, but at least I got excited for something back then. And ever since then, I watched every E3 since, and I saw the new games they announced. Like 2011, I remember getting Link's Awakening DX as soon as the E3 presentation ended, because, to be honest, me and many others were mad that the eShop got delayed until right before E3 so Nintendo could promote it and do what they did with the Zelda's Awakening. I get why they did it, they claimed it was for infrastructure and stuff, but I honestly think it was because of E3 promotion. And, well, they did release Zelda on launch day, and I enjoyed playing Zelda for the rest of the month for my 3DS, but the lack of an eShop really hurt the 3DS hard. And they also did announce a few other games like Luigi's Mansion 2 and Mario Kart 7, I believe. That was the 3DS one. And those games were fun to look forward to, and we did learn more about the Mario 3D game, but it was not really a 3D game, it was more or less the new Super Mario Bros. Series in the 3D space, like I mentioned in my Wii U retrospective. But unlike 3D World, which was charming, fun, and creative, 3D Land just felt like literally 2D New Super Mario Bros. Levels in a 3D space. Didn't feel creative at all, and the story was kind of lame. But yeah, the 2011 E3 was fun, and the 2012, 2013, 2014 E3s were respectively fun. I just tuned in, saw what new games they announced, and some were better than others. Let's get to what my favorite E3 was, and to my honest opinion, I think my favorite E3 was... It's a tough one. It's a choice between 2014 or 2015. 2014 because of the Zelda Liu reveal trailer, but that was before it got into delay hell, and I got mad because they delayed it and announced a Nintendo Switch game. But 2016 was another Zelda-themed year, but it was when I thought I'd hate at first because they only wanted to focus on Zelda and a few titles in their Treehouse Live presentation, but surprisingly, they did not. They actually focused on Zelda and a few other games in the Treehouse Live, but balanced it out in a fantastic way, and I really enjoyed 2016 E3. But the 2014 E3 also had a bit of hype because of Smash Bros. And stuff, so I don't know. I really enjoyed the one where they did Smash Bros. And Zelda. So I'm gonna leave a tie between 2014 and 2016, because I did not grow up with or really get into any of the ones before 2010. As for the worst E3, that's kind of tough, but it's pretty much, I think I can assert where my worst E3 conference was. That was the 2015 one, hands down. I remember me and Paul were able to get together on the day E3 was, and we'd watch the conference live and get excited for what new games would be announced. And it was pretty much the only time I was able to have him over during an E3. So I thought it was going to be awesome. We'd be laughing and we'd be enjoying what was next. And then they announced, well, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, which I hoped for an Animal Crossing game, like everyone else, of some kind. It was a spin-off I hoped for it to be a fun one like Happy Home Designer, which I don't really have. I hear it's fun, at least it's Animal Crossing like in gameplay. But as soon as I saw the HD Animal Crossing characters, saw that it was Isabelle, I was turned off right away. But what turned me off even more was the fact that it was a board game. And like Mario Party, but not even as fun. And Mario Party's not even fun to begin with anymore. So needless to say, that reveal in 2015 crushed me to pieces because it was Animal Crossing. I hoped for a good game after New Leaf disappointed me, and it seemed to be bad in both ways because it brought back Isabelle, who I hate, and also because it brought a board game to the table, and that still doesn't make sense. Why did they make a board game? Nintendo said they made Amiibo because they wanted a game that used the Amiibo. I get it, but Amiibo Festival just seems like a stupid idea, and I don't even know why it exists. It has a bad Metascore for a reason, and they dedicated some time to announcing it as a world reveal during the presentation. It was just dreadful. Oh, and they announced a new Mario Tennis game, which I kind of enjoyed. I still prefer the golf games, but it just looked really dull and boring, and the reviews for that game didn't help either, so the Wii U had 2 duds that holiday season. But guess what? Even though the whole E3 was about transformation, they had the puppets with Iwata, Miyamoto, Reggie, and they became Star Fox, because they also revealed Star Fox stuff. But I didn't really care for that because it seemed to be a motion-controlled gimmick game, and it did become a motion-controlled gimmick game when it came out. But I still like Star Fox because I love Falco. I loved Star Fox 64 3D, and I was hoping to give Zero a try, but it didn't seem like it'd be my cup of tea, so I just got God instead, which I haven't really touched in my backlog. So, for the most part, Star Fox Zero disappointed me, but it didn't anger me like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival and Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. And yes, me and Paul were both there when they announced Metroid Prime Federation Force, which made the internet throw a fit even more than I probably would have if it was like Metroid 2D party board game. Because to be honest, any game with Metroid Prime in it would have been a skip for me because I don't like the Metroid Prime series. It's a first-person shooter. I hated Metroid Prime 2 Echoes on the GameCube. I kind of grew up with it. I made it to some spider boss I don't really remember much of and got stuck, and it just hasn't been a positive impression ever since. I just prefer the 2D games by a long shot. I'm waiting for a Metroid 5 or 2 Metroid game, which in my opinion hasn't come out since 2004, and I only got to the series in 2011, so Metroid Prime Federation Force didn't really upset me anyway like it did for so many other Metroid fans, which I found strange, because they got Metroid Other M in 2010 and Metroid Prime 3 in 2007, and this game just seems like a Metroid Prime Hunter sequel. I mean, it just seems kind of silly for them to overreact, because if anything, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash or Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival should have gone all the hate, but that's just me. I probably would have checked out Federation Force if it was cheaper and if it maybe had more creativity to it instead of just being a co-op multiplayer first-person shooter game. Because I did try the Blast Ball demo and didn't like it much because it was the first person that threw me off. But yeah, 2015 was the worst E3 Nintendo had in my opinion. But the whole point of the E3 2015 presentation was because they transformed into the puppets or Star Fox Zero and whatnot. They said it would be all about transforming the old franchises, and they talked about Yoshi's Woolly World and Mario Maker, stuff we already knew about. And they talked about Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival and Ultra Smash. I already mentioned those are awful, awful games. And Federation Force, which I don't think is awful, I just think it's not real Metroid. Neither any of the Prime games. But out of all the games that had transformation in them, they did not mention Super Mystery Dungeon at all. And that was, in my opinion, the best Pokemon game of Generation 6, period, and probably my all-time favorite game so far. I'm not even joking, I love it that much. The story is great, the gameplay it's challenging and entertaining, a bit repetitive unfortunately, but I really did find myself invested in it, and I loved it to pieces, and that's why I kind of am making my Mystery Dungeon retrospective, because of games like Super. But they didn't mention it during the main conference, and I don't know why, because, I mean, they've mentioned other Pokemon games during E3 conferences before, even if it's by passing. It just seems stupid that they'd ignore Super Mystery Dungeon, and they did delegate a bit of it to the Treehouse Live conference, which I did watch and enjoyed, but E3 2015 was just a disaster. There was nothing good at all. Everything was boring, or we already knew about it, and it was just horrible. And the sad part is, it was the last E3 Iwata was at. No, he didn't even go to the event, but it was the last E3 Iwata was involved with before his passing, so I can't help but feel bad that the last E3 he was associated with was one where he basically got ridiculed because of all the games that they announced, even though I don't think Iwata was involved in that many of them directly. So yeah, that's my worst E3. I only gave my best. My one-up for worst E3 would be 2012, because while I do think the Wii U presentation was decent, it showed off some good games, it wasn't really revolutionary or made people want the Wii U desperately, and the really big part for me was the 2012 Nintendo 3DS conference that little guy named Scott Moffat hosted, and I hate to say this, but I can't stand the guy. As a person, he's probably nice and a great guy to hang out with, but as a presenter, he's just terrible. He didn't really know what he was doing. He was just boring to listen to, and every game they presented was stuff we knew about, and they didn't present it at all in any ways that were interesting. No virtual console news, no really any news. It was just slow, boring, and I really hate every minute of it. In fact, the only good thing to come out of that conference was when he accidentally letting slip the fact that Fire Emblem Awakening was coming to the West. And at the time, people didn't even know if it would come out here at all because that remake of Fire Emblem 3 didn't come out on the DS. So that was one good thing from the 2012 3DS conference I liked. But next to the 2015 E3 as a whole, the 2012 3DS conference would be my next most hated E3 presentation. So that was a quick rundown of my memories of E3, what I liked, hated, mostly hated because 2015 really hurt me hard, and that brings me to my predictions for 2017. I hate to say this, but I'm having a bad feeling we're going back to 2015 territory because of the new president and stuff. I'm not really too trusting because they did it right with Breath of the Wild last year. But this year they had Mario Odyssey, which is not a Breath of the Wild tier game. It's apparently been finished for some time now, and while I'm excited for it, for being a true 3D Mario game, I just don't see it having the same amount of holding impact as Zelda did last year. So there was Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Those were announced yesterday as of the time I'm recording this video. And I think they'll be showing off a bit more, maybe some info on new features, but not much because Game Freak shies away from E3. I think that they'll reveal that Mario and Rabbids crossover people really either hate or love or find amusing. I hate the Rabbids with all my fibers of existence, but I hear it's a long and engaging game, and you do get to fight enemy Rabbids, and you know there's some ally Rabbids. As long as I get to beat up Rabbids for me hating them, I'm fine with them. But I'm kind of nervous because the fact it's been leaked to death, and Nintendo was apparently relying on it to be a shock presentation of their E3. Their 2017 E3 is not going to have any surprises. It's going to bore people to death. People on the internet will go, "Oh, we already knew this away because of leaks." And it's not really going to be the leaker's fault, or really anyone's fault. It's kind of hard to explain, but culture can damage expectations for E3 by making them super duper high or super duper low. And I think we're going to be in the super duper low territory for this E3, unfortunately. But for things I hope get announced, I hope to God that the virtual console for the Nintendo Switch gets announced. Because good God, I can't stand the freaking Neo Geo for much longer. They're having a few good games like Shock Troopers Second Squad and Last Resort come out, but after that they're gonna get back to the Street Fighter 2 clone territory. And there's way too many fighters on the darn thing, and we already got the best of best, so we don't need any new Neo Geo games. In my opinion, we should just go back to the Arcade Archive Standard series and add the virtual console so that there's a nice variety of retro games every week. And so that way the Switch Online next year, which thankfully was confirmed to not be a virtual console replacement. Hopefully those two can be separate so that maybe we get GameCube and Nintendo 64 and Game Boy games on the virtual console while all the NES and Super Nintendo Online stuff is next year, because I can wait for those. I just need stuff to play on the darn thing until September when Pokken comes out, because the eShop's a barren wasteland. So yeah, I'm hoping the virtual console gets announced and released on the same day next week, but I'm honestly not expecting it, and I'm expecting my hopes to be crushed and for me to be having my Switch collect dust. Unfortunately, because even though Nintendo's releasing one big retail game a month, a lot of them are focused on online stuff, and the Switch's Wi-Fi signal is atrocious, and in fact, my vacation cabin was only able to hold 2 bars, and that's the most it's ever had, even though my normal fancy home can only get 1 bar unless I put on top of the router. So I don't know why some Wi-Fi signals are so picky with the darn thing, but the Nintendo Switch is just really feels like a beta test of a console, and I want them to do more stuff, more features, more themes, more music, something to make the Switch actually creative, so that way I don't get bored while in the eShop listening to nothing in silence. So I guess we got a bit of my rant on the Switch in a way from the lack of variety and creativity. But I just hope the Virtual Console's announced on Switch. I hope Mario Odyssey is engaging, and I hope they announce lots of new stuff, because even though they say it's going to be 2017 focused, they can still announce new stuff for the Switch, and hopefully not the 3DS, because the 3DS needs to die quickly. I'm not one of the people who threw tantrums over Ultra Sun and Moonbeam on the 3DS or Switch, because I just really honestly hope there'll be new 3DS exclusive. Just so that way the full power of the new 3DS could be realized and it wouldn't kill the install base that much, because a lot of people have new 3DSs. I don't know why Nintendo's so stupid on not releasing games for the new 3DS, but millions of people have the Nintendo. Release some exclusives on it that are actually good, not trash like Block Form. Seriously, I still can't believe I reviewed that game. But yeah, I'm having the bingo card of sorts go up on my Twitter around the time this video comes out, so I'll link in the description. You can see my full predictions for this E3. But to make things short, I'm not too excited for E3. I'm going to have my expectations lowered. I'm mostly going to be focused on Sony's conference, see if they have anything for the PS4. But for the most part, I think it's going to be a relaxing year for the gaming industry, and really, I'll just clear my backlog while I wait for new Switch games. I just hope they have new Switch games. That's what I hope for. So yeah, this was a bit more of a rambly E3, but hey, that's what E3 does. So yeah, this is Connor from Unscripted Memories and Seafoam Gaming, and I'll say bye. Bye!